So, Osio, and welcome everyone. I'm absolutely thrilled to have Ross meet with us this month. I met him a couple of years ago as with a tour of the facility he's now head of, and it was phenomenal to see these things.
He lives in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Oh, Kathy, maybe you should mute your thing.
We're going to go ahead and mute you, Kathy.
Remind people that they can mute, Jim, right here.
So we'll mute so we don't run over Ross here because we're recording and we'll share this later. Anyway, I was able to meet with him and got a tour of the facility and saw a lot of the artifacts. And it's one of those things that I never really thought of where these things are and how they're being treated, how they're being maintained, and how they're being collected, because it never really occurred to me much. To me, they're not really all that much of an antique. It is just kind of family heirlooms. But in looking through there's a lot more to it than I had originally thought. And being able to see, you know, our documents that give us our tribal lands, it was a treat. I've only ever seen prints of it, which are not much bigger than a regular piece of paper. To see it full scale was kind of surprising to me. So I've been trying to convince him he needs to join with us on one of these weekends. It's taken a while for his schedule to open up, and we're very glad to have him. With that, Dr. Ross, thank you, and I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Joseph, and hi, everybody. It's fun that at least on Zoom, I already know a few of you, which is great. And then thank you for the people in person as well. And hopefully you can hear me all right. Please, if there's presentation issues, I'm not gonna be able to see you all once I start sharing. So just yell out and stop me if there's problems and we'll fix them. So I'm gonna try to hop around between the presentation and some other stuff on my computer. That's one upside of doing this virtually, I think, is I can actually probably share more than I could if I was standing there with you, because I can share digitally some of this stuff that otherwise I wouldn't be able to bring. So first thing I'm going to do is start a presentation. Now we have entered the part where I cannot see you, so you just let me know if there's any problems. You should be seeing the Research Center full screen on your side. So I'm going to talk for 20-ish minutes probably, and again, I can pause at various points for questions or discussion, but I'll have plenty of time at the end. We can all have a bigger discussion. And I want to do a few things. I want to introduce you all to the Cherokee National Research Center and the Cherokee National Collection. So that's Cherokee Nation's collection of art, artifacts, objects, and archives that document Cherokee history and culture. And we'll see some examples of that and talk a little bit about the scope of that collection and the extent of it. I want to familiarize you to the degree I can, virtually at least, with this space that you're seeing on your screen, the Cherokee National Research Center, so that when you are in Tahlequah next, whether it's for a holiday or a CCO event or just coming through, you can come visit and feel like you know where you're at and come see us here. I want to share some items from the Cherokee National Collection, some of our treasures, and let you kind of understand what we've got. And then I'll talk a little bit about how we build this collection and the plans for the future. So as Joseph was mentioning, the collection is growing constantly. We're really refining how we grow the collection with intent and with purpose, and letting you all know that process, I think, helps you all become thoughtful donors in the future with your own Cherokee history and culture materials that you might have. So I am, by training, I suppose, I'm a historian, so I have a PhD in history. That's actually my background. And about 15 years ago, I sidestepped into the archives world and have been doing that since, and I love it. But you'll have to forgive me because I'm a historian at heart, and I have to jump back to the past and give a little bit of context about this collection and this space and where it all came from. So I want to start with I won't go all the way back, but I'll go back to the 60s at least, the 1960s, and talk a little bit about this space that you're seeing here, which is the Cherokee Heritage Center. Many of you have probably been here over the decades if you had passed through this area. Since the late 60s, what you're seeing here, this is the National Museum, and then 3 columns outside of the female seminary. This was really the hub and heart of Cherokee culture, engaging with Cherokee culture and engaging with Cherokee history. So 1967 is really when this project kicked off, and it kicked off with the Ancient Village, which was a living history space. So there were buildings where people would be out there working as traditional Cherokees, or at least as it was interpreted in the late 60s. In 2013, what was called the Ancient Village got reworked into what is and was and is still Diligua. It's closed, which I'll get to, but will be reopening in the future. Diligua Village is more of a 17th century, instead of an ancient village pre-contact, it's more of a 17th century trade village, so kind of post-contact, exploring that. And there were lots of people that, they're not actors per se, they were real Cherokee people, but they lived, it's a living history space. They lived as if they were in that period and exposed visitors to Cherokee lifeways at the time. So that's a real big draw from the 60s all the way until 2020. Excuse me, 2020, when the Heritage Center closed. That was a major pull for people, is that living history space. In 1969, the next phase of the Heritage Center happened, which was the establishment of the amphitheater. The amphitheater was open for many decades and had a seasonal attendance, essentially. It was in the summer, and it's where the Trail of Tears drama was put on. That was modeled after the idea came from Unto These Hills in North Carolina, the outdoor drama there. There were some Cherokees from Oklahoma that had visited North Carolina in the late 60s, understood the tourism appeal and the potential there for cultural exposure in that way, and established the same thing out here with a really beautiful amphitheater on these grounds. So many of you also, if you've been through over the past 50 years at some point, you maybe saw the Trail of Tears drama. I assure you, since you all are tied into Cherokee networks, you also know people that were in the drama, because if you know anyone from this area, Tahlequah area, many people either came up acting in the drama or came up working in the village. So you know people for sure that have been in these spaces. 5 years after the amphitheater was the next big phase for the Heritage Center. That was the establishment of the building you're seeing here, which is the Cherokee National Museum. That was meant to be the home for the collection as it existed then, and it was a historical collection primarily, so it's really a kind of history museum. But then what was special about it, and we'll talk a little bit about this because this continues, is that this was also a space for exploring contemporary Cherokee art. So even from the 70s when this opened, the Historical Society that owned and operated the museum at the time was buying and acquiring Cherokee art, getting it through donation and purchase of living artists. So not just historical material, but contemporary material to document the really explosion in the mid 20th century of Cherokee artistic endeavors. So this is a fantastic space. Again, this was really the heartbeat of Cherokee cultural experience for visitors for 50 years, from the 70s until 2020 when it closed. You will see the 3 columns out here. I think you all probably know the story of these, but these are 3 columns that remain from the original female seminary, Cherokee Female Seminary, before it, well, after it burned. This is what was remaining. These have been preserved and cared for decades, centuries now, I suppose. And they really stand, they're symbolic of the space. They really stand for this kind of continuity of Cherokee intellectual life, cultural life, historical and cultural engagement. They really, a lot is embedded in those 3 columns. You all probably saw that the new Cherokee Heritage Center, and again, we'll talk about its closure, but the new Cherokee Heritage Center has been announced officially. So the work is starting on that. These 3 columns will remain, of course, and will be a big part of that space, and really amazing. They'll be embedded in kind of a new courtyard space that's meant to be contemplative and reflective on the history of these columns and what they symbolize. So this will remain a symbol, and you'll be able to look forward to visiting and seeing that. One of the things about the growth of the Heritage Center was that it was a phased approach. So I'm showing you some plans here from the archives from Chief Boyd, the architect at the time. You will see over on the right the rectangular building that was the museum. So you just saw it, and you can see the 3 columns kind of out in front with the walkway. What you will see also is this 7-sided archives building labeled archives. I think I have a zoom of it. There we go. that's a building. I think many of you have probably been in the museum building. Many of you, nobody has been in this archives building because this archives building never got built. So that is part of the history of this space, was this phased approach, and unfortunately, that phase never came to fruition. We never got this National Archives built that was meant to be in that really beautiful space. And I can share a couple other things from our archives. I'll let you stare at this for just a second to orient yourself. This is kind of angled down on the page that you can see, but you can see it was meant to have a library space, almost a viewing gallery up on the outer level there. You can see the silhouetted figures, and then the reading room itself would be in this middle section there on the left of the image. So it was a really beautiful idea, and it speaks to the importance, even from the beginning, that the Historical Society and that the nation put on Cherokee archives and Cherokee historical material and making it accessible. And again, this building itself didn't come to fruition, but the idea certainly never went away. So I'll get to that. A little bit about that collection building. So again, even though the space didn't emerge, there was efforts from the 70s, even before the museum building was built, to start building that collection of important archival material. So some of the earliest material came from the early 1970s. So that was papers from Chief Bill Keeler. He had donated a bunch of material, manuscripts and records from the Cherokee Foundation, which was an earlier organization focused on economic development, really, of the Cherokee Nation, even before 71. So these almost from statehood to 71, these almost proto-political and economic organizations, a lot of their records ended up in these archives that the Historical Society and the Heritage Center collected in the 60s and 70s and beyond, which is awesome. We also got some really important donations to this collection over the decades. So again, art, objects, artifacts, archives, lots of stuff coming in. There was enough stuff coming in fact, that in 1977, an archivist was hired in an official capacity. His name was Tom Mooney. Many of you probably knew Tom. He's passed since, but Tom was really the key person for stewarding and maintaining these archives until 2015. And Tom was a fantastic steward of Cherokee. He wasn't Cherokee himself, but he was a fantastic steward of our cultural and historical material. But he had a problem, which is that this space, and I'll jump back, this museum space that you're familiar with, it was meant to be a museum, to show off the material, not to store it and keep it safe for decades and decades. That's what that archives and collections building was meant to be. So the problem was that material continued to stack up for decades until we had a space problem, and the space itself, which was the basement of that museum, was really not a great environment to continue to house and keep secure a growing collection. I'm skipping over a lot of history, but now I'll jump to 2020, and many of you probably remember this event. This was the signing of the Cherokee Heritage Center Act of 2020. So you can see Chief Hoskin, Deputy Chief Warner, Joe Bird, who I think was Speaker of the Council then, and Brenda Partain, who was the board member from the Historical Society, signing the Heritage Center Act of 2020. And that did a few things. That transferred ownership of the Heritage Center, the grounds there, everything I just mentioned, including the collection, to the nation. So instead of the independent nonprofit Historical Society owning and operating the space, the nation itself, so we as citizens now own our own cultural heritage material, which is fantastic and really an important thing. Tribal council also declared a state of emergency for the collection, and they did that in response to this, which is a sort of peek into the basement of the Heritage Center if you had never been in there. And it really was in a state of emergency. This is not a blame game at all. There's completely understandable reasons about why things ended up having to be pushed into a corner like this and stacked in rooms that have leaks in the ceiling. None of this was the fault of any of the people working here or the board or anyone else. This is the nature of collections that grow faster than the spaces that hold them. But it truly was a problem down here. So you can see, I think it kind of speaks for itself. And frankly, I've been in collections across the country, including at very well-resourced institutions that are in much worse shape than this. So, but when I show you where we're at now, you'll see a stark difference. But the tribal council and then chief and deputy had signed off on some legislation that declared a state of emergency for this collection. That freed up the funds to build out a new space for this, move the collection to that space, inventory it, and start kind of a new way of stewarding and taking care of this material. So that brings me to the Cherokee National Research Center. This space was built so that Heritage Center closed in 2020, and all that I just told you about happened. This space at the Cherokee Springs Plaza, which is here in Tahlequah, and it's where I'm sitting right now, this was built in 2021. It was built out, and they put the research center in here. It's in a strip mall essentially here, but it's actually really worked for us. It has really high visibility. We're next to the Cherokee gift shop, which is great. We're next to the gallery. We're right in front of the casino. So no, it's not the beautiful space out in the woods like the Heritage Center, but we get a lot more foot traffic here because we're right off the highway coming into Tahlequah. So this was done in partnership with the economic arm of the tribe, Cherokee Nation businesses, and they hired out a third party to help us move this collection and understand what is in it. So in 2021, I wasn't here yet, but a handful of people on the CMB side, as well as the vendor that we hired, inventoried the entire collection in the basement of the Heritage Center and ended up moving it over to this purpose-built space here at the Research Center. And you'll see a little bit more inside the Research Center here in a moment, but I wanted to share this image because this is an important image of the basically capping off this project. This is in the vault, the preservation environment at the Research Center that was built. That's obviously Chief Hoskin and Deputy Chief Warner and our former collection manager, Kelly Gonzalez, placing the land patent from 1838 in the vault. So that's the document that Joseph just mentioned during the introduction that conveys title to our land here in Indian Territory. It's signed by President Van Buren. It's a really important document, arguably the most important document for Cherokee sovereignty now that is in this collection. They ceremonially placed this in the vault in that drawer that you're seeing, and it remains there. So when Joseph came to visit and saw that, it was in that drawer and it doesn't leave that drawer now. So that's kind of cool. So back to the Heritage Center, or sorry, to the Research Center. I'll tell you a little bit about the present of what we do here and the functions of this space, and then I'll share some items from that collection. So the Research Center has three primary functions, all of which were transferred from the Heritage Center when that shut down. There were three important functions we needed to continue while the Heritage Center gets rethought and reworked and rebuilt. One of them is family research services. It's a really important thing. It's really what day-to-day most people that come in here are needing and doing. That is basically genealogical research. So we have two full-time genealogists. They help people navigate their Cherokee ancestry, or as the case more often is, their lack of Cherokee ancestry. So the vast majority, it's really about 95% of people that walk through those doors on the right and come to work with Gene Norris or Charlotte Nofire, our genealogists, believe they're Cherokee for some reason or have a hunch or very strongly believe it, and will learn, in fact, that that is not the case, that they do not have an ancestor on the Dawes rolls. They would not qualify for Cherokee citizenship. In most cases, they also have no claim to any Cherokee connection at all. So that's a really delicate thing. I'm glad I'm not the one having to do that with people, but it's really important for us to communicate truthfully with people and accurately. And Gene and Charlotte do a fantastic job being sensitive to what people's family stories are, but making sure that we're clear with people what criteria for being Cherokee is, and hopefully helping them understand that they're not. Even better is when we get to help people understand they are. Again, that's the minority of people that come in here, but it does happen, and it happens every week, that we get people that are not citizens come here to learn about their ancestors, and then they can walk away with a packet of information to go down to the registration office and become Cherokee citizens. And of course, if you're a citizen and already know that, they can also help you do genealogical research there too. So that's really why they're here. That was a paid service at the Heritage Center previously, and that is free now. So we get a very high volume of people coming in, investigating their Cherokee history. We also have a research library. So it's probably hard to see on whatever projector you're on, but through just to the left of the Dan Horsechief statue there, that first window, you can see some library books there. That is a 1200 volume library, non-circulating, of books about Cherokee history and culture. Lots of out-of-print material, lots of hard-to-find books. So people will come here and work on research projects using that library. And we get quite a bit of use there from especially students up the road at NSU, but also just curious parties curious about Cherokee art, history, culture, and so on. Finally, the third function, and what I spend most of my day doing, I mean, now I spend most of my day doing emails, but what my staff spends most of their day doing, which is maintaining the preservation environment that holds the Cherokee National Collection and providing a point of access for that collection. So really, in other words, a space to keep our Cherokee cultural materials safe and help people use them for research. So this is not a great picture. It's almost impossible to photograph this space in an effective way because it's a big square with these shelves in it. But what you're seeing now is inside the preservation environment at the Heritage, or here at the Research Center. And I want you to notice the collapsible shelving. So you can see on the right, the handle on the archival shelving there. That lets us save space here and be able to close these shelves and make the best use of the space we're in. A few more features of this space. This was purpose built to hold the Cherokee National Collection. So it is encased in concrete on all sides. We're above ground now, which solves a lot of those environmental issues with humidity and whatnot and water. But it also makes the collection susceptible to tornadoes in this area. But this was spec'd out to be able to withstand up to an EF5 tornado, which is a massive tornado. Probably the safest place in Tahlequah now is in this vault. So that was addressed. You'll see the black pipes running through the top of the building there. That is for our waterless fire suppression system. So if a fire were to break out in this space for some reason, it could be extinguished without damaging any of the cultural material. And there's also two big air handlers in here that keep this space cool. So it keeps the temperature low, and it keeps the relative humidity between 40 and 50%. So that's not dry necessarily, but it's definitely not humid. It keeps it basically where the basketry, pottery, and papers like to be to extend their life. We tend to think of this collection in two different kind of intellectual frames. One is what you're seeing a little bit of on the left side. That's what we call the cultural collections. The cultural collections, the way to think about those is that these are purposeful expressions of Cherokee creativity or artistry in some way, or craftsmanship. So basically, these are art objects. These are things that the reason an artist is creating them is to express something artistic or cultural through the creation of these items. So we have that collection as the cultural collection. That has a particular frame that you come with mentally and intellectually when you're cataloging it and describing it and linking it to other objects. So we kind of think of it as its own thing. And then on the right, you see the boxes that are some of our archival boxes. That is really meant to be a historical collection of archives. The difference there is that archives are not typically created with someone sitting down thinking, I'm creating this as an expression of Cherokee culture or history. They're doing their work. They're lawyers, they're government workers, they're just regular people writing to family members. You can get at Cherokee history, you can get at Cherokee culture through those materials, but that's not really why people are doing it. They're almost material remnants of activities that are happening. It's really cool though, and one of the special things that I love about this collection is that you can often put these in conversation with each other. So we have, for instance, an example might be we have the records of the Sequoia Indian weavers And those are ledger books, and I'll actually share one with you in a bit. But ledger books and other material documenting the weavers as a business entity, basically. But then we have blankets that came off of the looms there. We have the looms themselves in the collection. And you can really, if someone's interested in the weavers as a historical topic, we can also show them some of the material culture that was created by those people. So that's pretty neat. This is a quick video here of the basketry collection, which is really fantastic. And I'll just, there we go. It's just hard to photograph, so I figured I'd walk down the aisle and just show you kind of the scope of the collection when it comes to basketry, at least. So you will see there the double wall baskets, the round reed baskets, flat reed, different shapes, different sizes, different materials, some that are traditionally gathered, some that are commercial dyes, organic, traditional dyes, and so on. I'm going to keep moving and show. I want to share now some of the stuff that is out of the archives, and this is really my expertise coming into this job is in archival material, manuscript material, rare books, and so on. Although in the past 3 years, I've really learned a lot about the cultural collection as well. But I want to share some of these items with you that I think you'll find pretty interesting. The first of these is you can see it says Selections of Poetry for Martha S. Evarts by her friends, and it's dated 1823. This is a really important, fantastic item in our collection for a couple of reasons. Martha Evarts in 1823 is about 13 or 14 years old. She is the daughter of Jeremiah Evarts, who is the secretary of the American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions. That is the missionary group that has established mission schools, including Brainerd Mission outside of Chattanooga, all over the Southeast, all over the US, actually, all over the world, in fact. So they're Christian missionaries, of course, but they've established these schools in the Southeast and been living among and working with Cherokees for decades at this point. So Jeremiah is the secretary of that group, and we have lots of his correspondence. It's at the Houghton Library at Harvard. But this document is an autograph book from his daughter, Martha, from 1823. So people would come through the Evarts home and leave notes or pieces of poetry for Martha as they pass through, including this, which it may be hard to see on your screen, at least in the room there at the library. But what you're seeing at the top is this says Cherokee Hymn, and then it has 3 stanzas of a Cherokee hymn. You can see the first line, Unehlanahi Okanali, so the Lord my friend, essentially, Creator my friend. This is the earliest known manuscript writing by a Cherokee person that exists anywhere. So this is from 1820. It's actually from 1823. The book is from 1823. I think this might be from 24. Might be from 23. It's at the bottom of the page, which I don't have photographed, of course, but David Brown is who inscribed this in Martha's book. David Brown was, in fact, a student at Brainerd Mission and Cherokee man. He's a young man at this point. He's in his, I think he's 18 or 19 maybe, or maybe early 20s. He's going to continue his Christian education, his missionary education up in the Boston area, which is where Martha and her father Jeremiah are. So he passed through the Evarts home for reasons that would make sense because he's connected like that. And he left this hymn in the book. And Sequoia's syllabary would have already been developed by now, but there's not widespread adoption yet. And in fact, David Brown was engaged in his own way of trying to represent the Cherokee language at the time and doing some translation work. So that's why he has this kind of phonetic style that eventually falls away, and he adopts the syllabary as well. And yes, Sequoia is writing in Cherokee and others are writing in Cherokee before this document, but that material we don't know where it's at. It's either in private hands or it's been lost to history. So the items that are supposedly and hopefully in Sequoia's hand at the Gilcrease Museum in Tulsa, those are from later they're actually, I think, it might be from the early 1830s, but certainly the later 1820s. This is the earliest known document written in Cherokee by a Cherokee person in any collection that we know of. So really special that we have this item. I'll give you a little zoom on it here. So in addition to the manuscript material, we have a lot of Cherokee print culture. This is some of my favorite stuff that is documented in this collection. This is a Cherokee primer from 1846 that was printed here in Park Hill, as you can see, on the Park Hill Mission Press. This was a document used for learning the Cherokee language, and there's some other, I think there's some mathematical material in the back actually, but these really beautiful engravings, and then obviously printed in Cherokee. So we have a really extensive collection of imprints from the Park Hill Press, the Dwight Mission Press, the Union Mission Press. So all the major Cherokee presses from the 19th century to the present, we have material off of those presses. A lot of them are religious in nature, biblical books, but then there's also almanacs, primers, and other material like this. So you can see the dog there on the right, Geechli. There's another hymn book from Dwight Mission Press. So that's post-statehood. You can see Marble City, Oklahoma from Dwight Mission Press. But we continue to document the Cherokee print culture through that period as well. Here you can see kind of the difference between those manuscript hymns that David Brown was inscribing in Martha's book and the form they end up taking when they get printed. This hymn book is still used, still printed, and still used by Cherokee hymn singers now, which is pretty cool. There's phonetic versions as well for people to follow along with. This is one I like to show because I end up in this presentation, I always end up showing all this paper material that's all shades of brown, but I love to get some color going here. This is a really cool thing out of the collection. You may have seen these before. These are not super rare, but they're always great to show because they're so colorful. This was from the 1970s in the Cherokee Bilingual Education Program. They published 4 of these comic books. So you see Beetle Bailey there, High and Lois, Popeye, Blondie. A few things about these I really like. So the translation, of course, is never direct. That doesn't say Beetle Bailey. So Jigoya Ayoski. So that's like Bug Soldier, basically. So they get a kind of approximation of Beetle Bailey, Bug Soldier. And then one of my favorite things is you can't see it there, but you see High and Lois on the right side under Beetle Bailey. The title of High and Lois is Co Alelosi. So the Alelosi part is and Lois, but then just Co for High. His name is Hiram in the comic, but they just went with Hi, hello, Co, which is funny. We have, as I mentioned, records from the government in this collection as well. So these are some of the papers from Bill Keeler, the last appointed chief and first elected chief in the modern Cherokee Nation from 1971. And you can see that material goes back before that. So for instance, here is a peek into what might be there. This is a letter to Governor Johnston Murray of Oklahoma from the 50s. Keeler writing to him about some issues about Cherokee social and economic welfare at the time. This is a pretty fun one I like to share too. So our main goal with this collection is to document with accuracy Cherokee culture and history and try to correct, misinformation or disinformation about Cherokee culture and Cherokee history. That being said, things like this. So this is Star Wars, a Cherokee movie, which is not actually what this thing is at all. This is a very odd pamphlet that a guy named Willie Whitefeather that claimed to be Cherokee. He was not, but he claimed to be Cherokee. He put this document together, illustrated it, and it's really this conspiratorial thing about the Cold War and all this other stuff. It's a very odd document. He uses the syllabary characters and connects them to Star Wars somehow. You can see the Star of David in there as well. oddball document, but we also think it's important to document how Cherokee identity or Cherokee history and culture has been misappropriated and misused. So it's not what we're going to be putting in our museums, but it is interesting for the archives to document that so people can understand that there's an accurate and authentic Cherokee history and culture. Then there's this whole sideshow of how people, what people think Cherokees are and what Cherokee history means. So that's just a fun, kind of goofy thing in the collection. Very extensive newspaper collection here. So this is one that's really special. This is an issue of the Daily Eagle from Veneta, and you can see Veneta Indian Territory there from 1901, so pre-statehood. This is, in fact, the only known copy of this paper as well. So the National Archives doesn't have one of these. OHS here in Oklahoma, the Oklahoma Historical Society, they don't have a copy of this. So the big newspaper collections across the country, they know about the Daily Eagle of Veneta because it's mentioned in other papers, but no one has any except for we have 2 issues, volume 1, number 2, and a number 3, I think. You can see here an article. This is a Veneta paper pre-statehood. This is covering concerns of Cherokee people that would have been living in Veneta. In this case, objections to the late treaty, which at the time would have been related to the Dawes Act in some way. We have a photograph collection that covers the entire history of photography from the earliest forms of photography, including daguerreotypes, which is what this is. So from the mid-19th century, that's Principal Chief John Ross and his second wife, Mary Stapler Ross. We have that original daguerreotype in the collection, which is fantastic. All the way to, these are 35, this is a contact sheet from 35 millimeter camera. This is from the 90s, I believe. 1990s, yeah, 95, I see in the top left. This is from the Cherokee Phoenix or Advocate collections. This is material that would have appeared in the newspapers printed, and really fantastic documentation about normal, everyday Cherokee people living their life here on the reservation. We also have digital photography, and part of this is related to some kind of community projects we've worked on. So this is an example. This is Born Digital material on the right. This was the free lunch thing that was a flyer, digital flyer that was put on Facebook, related to it's related to the Cherokees for Black Indian History Preservation Group, which is a group Ty Wilson runs here in Tahlequah, about freedmen and Cherokee history. This was a ad that appeared on Facebook. We tried to digitize that stuff and document what's happening digitally, as well as a bigger project, community project in this case on the left, which is a digitized version of an analog photo. The family themselves kept that photo, but they shared with us the digital version, which we can then archive digitally to document Cherokee history and culture. In this case, it was freedmen related as well. I'm going to stop sharing just so I can talk to you all again, and I can see you, and then I'll share a few more things. Oh, I probably did stop. Let me get where I can see you again. There we go. Okay. I'm going to step back then a little bit, and I want to talk about philosophically how we approach our work here. So that was my normal run through presentation of the type of material we have, what we do, but stepping back, thinking bigger picture about what happens here at the Research Center, what we think of our jobs as. One of them is that we think of ourselves as stewards. That's a name or word I had mentioned a few times during this presentation. So we really see ourselves as stewards of Cherokee culture and history. So we work on behalf of a global Cherokee citizenry. So that includes you all, of course. You're not sitting here with us in Tahlequah on the reservation, but you're Cherokee citizens. We are working for you to keep this stuff safe so that it's accessible to everyone. So we steward the material in that way. We also see ourselves as pathfinders. So the staff here really wants to help people navigate what can be complicated histories. So histories related to their own families, but related to land and place, help people find their way to understand the complexities of Cherokee history and how they fit into it. And then we serve as ambassadors as well. So we don't just serve Cherokee people. Our foremost concern is serving fellow Cherokee citizens, but this is open to the public, and really we're here to help non-Cherokees, non-native people engage with Cherokee culture in an accurate, authentic, and honest way. So we do interpretive work on this collection as well, but help people navigate in ways that don't perpetuate myths and stereotypes about Cherokee history, but help clear some of that up and help people tell stories that are accurate and authentic. I want to share a few more things to take advantage of being able to do this digitally. And these are probably going to be relevant to you all. So one of the ways we're doing this, and I think this is probably a question that would come up, is how do you all access all of this from Puget Sound region or wherever you're at in the country or in the world? Well, we're working on that. So currently, we have digitized a very small portion of the archival collection, but we're working on preservation quality digitization. And I want to share with you what that means. So let me share my screen again. Bear with me. This is a priority for us, is to get the entire collection digitized to the degree I'm about to show you. We're not quite there, but we're working on it. So I had mentioned the Sequoia Indian weavers who were loom weaving blankets and other textiles. What you're seeing here on my screen is one of those ledger books, and it's a really fantastic one because what they've done in here is list the weight of these fabrics as well as the dyes used and the dye mixtures. And this is from I think this is from the 50s, maybe the 60s, this ledger book. So pretty amazing to be able to 60, 70 years back, possibly recreate some of these colors. I'm zoomed way out, and I want to show you all what we're aiming for. We could do digitization at this level that you're kind of seeing on your screen fairly easy, but this is not preservation quality. What we want is to be able to do this. So that's zoomed in at 100%. You can see the individual fibers in this yarn. You can see you can see pinholes in the paper. You can see faint pencil marks behind the ink where people have marked over it. This is the level of digitization we are aiming for our archival collections, so that we can make it like you are sitting here, and in some ways even better than sitting here. This is closer than, this is bigger than it would be in real life, the amount I'm zoomed in here. You could, of course, zoom past 100 as well and really get in there. Similarly, I can share another digitized image. We use Teams here, not Zoom, so I always have to relearn whichever system we're using. One of the items we got digitized recently in preservation quality is the scrapbooks of Chief Bill Keeler. He's here on the left holding the rolled up piece of paper. This looks like he's at a BIA office, possibly in Muskogee, with the five tribes emblems behind him. This is a 19% zoom. I'm going to zoom in and really show you here the details that this level of zoom provides us. I really like this one because you can see right there on the wall in this photo from a scrapbook, oh, there's the land patent. You can even see Martin Van Buren's signature on the wall there, which is pretty amazing to be able to get in with this detail and this level of resolution. And this is a good example. Like, you can see the pinhole in the paper, you can see the fibers in the paper. That matters for some people who are interested in materiality of this this material, but also if you're just interested in the content of photos and other material, you really need to photograph at extremely high resolution so that it is capturing as much detail as humanly possible. I will say that is a very expensive endeavor to digitize at that level. This is not a flatbed scanner sitting on the desk. We have that. We've done that for some things. We did that work with a vendor out of St. Louis, and it was very expensive. But what it has done for me is it let me get some data points of what it would cost to do this with a vendor for the entire collection versus doing it in-house if we invested in the equipment we needed. this is more inside baseball than you probably want, but also on my team, we're doing goal planning for the next fiscal year coming up starting October. One of our goals is to get our digital preservation plan sorted out over the coming year so that we are ready to invest in-house in the equipment we need to be able to do that level of digitization going forward. So I don't put timelines on things. I've learned that lesson, but I would expect in the next half decade that we would have more and more of this available at that quality that you all can navigate online. I will share with you what that might look like, how you might end up navigating some of this stuff. And I see Karen's question. I'll get to those questions in just a second. Let me share this. So none of what you're about to see, actually, that's not true. So what this first thing I'm sharing, I can share the links with Joseph, who can share it with everybody. This first link is our library catalog. So I mentioned that, and are you seeing, can you just give me a thumbs up? Are you seeing this browser? Okay, good. You're seeing our library catalog online. This is that 1,100, 1,200 volumes of our books. So for instance, you could search for Civil War, and you would see what is in our library here. So this is online and public, and you could look. The books are not digitized on here, so this is really more useful for in-house. But we've reclassified our library in a way that makes sense for us, and then also made it searchable and accessible here. Currently publicly available, but not widely advertised. This is almost a sneak peek for you all, is 2 different ways of engaging with the collection and learning what is in it. So one of them is our archive space instance, is what you're looking at here. This is where we keep our finding aids for our collections. So you could go and click on collections here. And this is, I have 2 archivists full-time. This is a fraction of what is in that collection because they have to describe every folder, every item in here. But you can see some of these key collections. For instance, the Lula Ross Henderson collection of John Ross papers and photographs. You could click into that, learn what is in it. It contains over 60 folders that cover the professional and personal life of Principal Chief John Ross and so on. And then over here on the right, in fact, is the list of everything that is in there. What the future will hold is that you could click on Letter from Joseph Martin to John Ross from 1857 and not just get a transcription and description of it, but a photo of it or a digitized version of it. So we're not quite there, but that's what we're aiming towards. But in the meantime, we do have this transcription here, and you can learn about what the item is. You can, of course, also search there. So if I put, John Ross in quotes, the Henderson collection comes up, the Sally Garner Briggs and Dale Eiserman collection comes up, which contains John Ross material. Photographs from other collections, Frank Fanenga papers. So this is how you can start to navigate our archival collection. This will grow and grow and grow and basically empower researchers, including yourselves, from afar to be able to navigate the collection and explore it directly once it's all digitized. And finally, the part that's almost a true sneak preview that most people are not aware of yet, and it's really, we have not launched this, but we're experimenting with it, is those museum objects we will have a interface to explore and engage with as well. So I'm going to scroll through this, which we're calling our e-museum, but you can see some of these items that have been photographed in really high quality and learn more about them as you click through. So for instance, I could click on this miniature portrait of Mary Stapler, who we just saw on the daguerreotype earlier. And like any museum website that you would expect, we have that level of detail now with our cataloging. This is from 1845. It's a watercolor on ivory. You've got your dimensions, a short description about it, and then really high resolution images here that you can explore online and zoom in on. And in fact, in this case, we also have the little manuscript that was tucked away in the back. It's hard to read, but it says, Mrs. John Ross and infant Annie Ross, painted by E. Milligan. So there's a whole story there about Elizabeth Milligan that is very interesting, but I'll leave it to you to explore that. But I wanted to share those ways that we're laying the groundwork for making all this available digitally as well. And one last thing I want to share that's exciting about the collection, and then we can answer some questions and just have a discussion, is we have been partnering with our colleagues at Cherokee Film to do some kind of cool stuff. So they, of course, have really robust technology for photography, which we've done, videography, but then also 3D scanning or 3D photography of items. Let me share that quickly. So this is a 3D scan or 3D photo project of a piece of pottery, Cherokee pottery, made by Anna Mitchell, or Cherokee National Treasure Anna Mitchell. And you can see it, oh, it's not letting me, probably because I'm sharing. Okay, 1 second. You can move it around. Of course, it's not going to cooperate with me now, but you can. I think it doesn't like being shared like that. You can spin that around and look at it and zoom in on it and look on the inside of it. So really an amazing technology. We only have that for 3 or 4 pots currently, but technology that we're experimenting with our Cherokee Film colleagues to document the 3D material at that level as well and give it that 3D sense so you can explore it online too. So that's kind of my scattershot sharing of random things that I wanted to share that that I thought you all might find compelling. I'm happy to stop talking for a minute and answer questions, have a discussion, and I can start with the first question that Karen had put in the chat while you all think of any others that you have. So Karen had asked, how do we prioritize the documents to be digitized? It's a great question. The ones that we've prioritized so far were prioritized as representative of the whole collection. So I picked stuff, I did some lithographs, some oversized lithographs. I did some ledger books, including those weavers that had the kind of oddball stuff pasted in, because those are really tricky. I did photographs. I did a few boxes of records. That was really meant to just be like, how long does it take to have a vendor digitize that much of this type of material versus this type of material? How much does it cost and how much time does it take to do all of that? So that was very practical prioritization. Speaking more generally, if we had everything to do in-house, what we would do is prioritize in 2 ways. One would be conservation considerations. So anything that is under threat of continual degradation, and that's photographs, especially daguerreotypes and other old photography, you really want to limit the use of those in person because they are really sensitive to light, to the environment in general. So we would want to get digitized and preserved, digitally preserved at the highest level, the environmentally sensitive stuff first. Second layer would be based on research value or research interest. So the collections that people most commonly come here to use, we want to get those digitized so that people all over can use them, because those are the ones that have the most research interest, whatever that might be. So there's all kinds of records that'll get put way down in the queue just because they might be interesting and compelling, but they're just not what people are hungering for to work on their projects. So we got another question here about how long does it take to do a 3D rendering or scan of the pottery? Well, it didn't take that long. That was about an hour of photography for that. You know, they use a turntable and they have all these cameras set up, but they have a whole studio at Cherokee Film, and we took it to Owasso, so just north of Tulsa here, and they photographed it in their state-of-the-art studio. They have all the lighting they need, and they have all the high-end computer stuff that they need to quickly render it and apply the texture and all that stuff. So really, it didn't take that long in time. It's just physically moving pottery to a completely different city. You know, it's an hour and a half north of here, and working with a whole separate team that has other priorities. That's kind of the slow thing with doing the pottery scanning. I would love to have that for the whole collection. It's a big ask for their team. I expect we'll figure out workflows there to be able to do that more quickly, but that's something in-house would be a huge cost for us to do, but we might consider that too. See another question from Ellis Craig. How extensive is your book collection? The figure of 1100 sounds short. Yeah, it's a good instinct that 1100 is not probably all we have, and it's not. So we have 1100 in the library out front for people to use. What we did, the Heritage Center had collected probably closer to 4,000 or 5,000 volumes of books over those 50 years. We, for space reasons out here, we're in a smaller space, so we pared it down to have those 1100 volumes really focused on Cherokee culture and history that are out in the library. We have a hole in the vault on shelving, and we can get for people if they need it. We have the other stuff, which is either duplicates of stuff we already had, or things that are like Chickasaw, Choctaw, Seminole, kind of other Southeastern history more broadly, other Native history even more broadly than that, or archaeological material. Those books and those texts, we do have. We keep those in the back for more specialized research if people are doing that, because we just don't have room out in our library for all of that.
Yeah.
We also pulled out, I will say, from the book collection, we pulled out the true rare books. So the books that were not just old, but of some kind of special value because they would be difficult to replace for being out of print and for other reasons. So we pulled those out and really turned them into a special collections that we also house in the vault, that it gets cataloged more with the museum objects, and people can certainly look at those materials, but we don't just put them on the shelf. That is all the questions I see in the chat. Anyone else? And of course, feel free to unmute and just have a discussion too.
Well, Russ, I was going to ask you about digitization, and I'm glad to see that actually going forward. It was new since I've been through there that you were talking about maybe starting to put photography, these objects, and getting them out to where everybody can see them without having to come see you specifically is probably a great way to make sure it's more handleable and definitely easier to keep processing. So kudos to you and your team on doing that.
Yep, and that's our really number one goal going into this next year is to. Let me back up. I'll give you again the kind of inside baseball here. Digitization is very tricky because the photography part, even though it's expensive, is easy. You put material in front of a camera with lights and you photograph it. Of course, there's more to it, but that's the basis of it. What is hard, and why I did this project with a vendor initially, is so I can make it clear to everyone. It is, what do you do now that we have 10,000 TIFFs and JPEGs of material that is photographed? They're currently living on a cloud space, backed up and on external drives and stuff. What am I going to do with them if you all want to see them? Send you 40,000 TIFFs or something? It's almost a terabyte of images for that small amount of stuff. You have to have a digital foundation to be able to store these things, access them, and share them. The same way that we have the vault and the shelving and the cataloging for the analog material, you have a whole infrastructure digitally that is required to take care of, at a preservation quality level, to take care of digital material. We do not have that yet, but it is now our priority to get that, because we now have material that we need to share. We've digitized images that I just showed you, but we also have audio we've digitized. We have video we've digitized. All of that requires some specific approaches to be able to store and share it. So we're gonna figure those out, and I really expect massive ramp up over the next year of solving the baseline issues, and then we'll see the ramp up of what we can share. I see Mary has a question. I'm going to read it out so everyone can know. So she says, I am a descendant of Nancy Ward. I have the good fortune of the work that David Hampton has done, but I wonder if there is more about, sorry, it went away. There we go. I wonder if there's more about some of those relatives, if there are photos or letters, etc. in the collection. I was just in Tahlequah during the holidays, but I knew you'd be absolutely swamped. Didn't want to just drop in as I should make an appointment, which I appreciate, Mary. You could have dropped in and we would have been happy to help you out. Although for what you're asking for archival access for that type of thing, We don't have everything cataloged yet to even know what all is in this collection. So you would not have got very far just dropping in anyway, because we need time to look for specific family names, photos, and all of that. What I would recommend, and again, I can have Joseph distribute my the email address for the research team would be the best way to go. We can help start to do some of that research, see what we can find, and then you could make a decision. Do we have enough to justify you wanting to come here to see it? Or do we have just a handful of things and we could probably digitize them and share them with you that way? So after this, on the kind of the follow-up email with all these other links and information, I can make sure you have the research email address and you can start that conversation. Ellis had another question, which is, has a decision been made as to whether to do the digitization versus contracting it out? Not officially, although I'm hoping that I am successful in having it, that we do it in-house. I would prefer to have our team. First of all, I drove the material we took to St. Louis and saw the space and made sure it was all safe and good, and it was. I don't want to be driving to St. Louis every 3 months in batches with stuff. I don't want my staff to have to do that either. It's an added cost. I don't want the material to leave this space if it doesn't have to. It's also very expensive to work with a vendor for the scale of the collection we have. We are likely to make an investment in-house in the equipment we need and in the staff we need to just run that in-house.
Yeah.
That's my hope. But I'm not sure yet. We're figuring it out. Tristy has a question. Is there anything we can do from here that would be helpful to you and your staff? Yes, and this is something that I meant to talk about, and this is a great kind of segue to talk about that. We have a responsibility to continue to build this collection on behalf of Cherokee citizens like yourselves. I would love for you all to keep your eyes and ears peeled for Cherokee cultural and historical material that might be on auction or from a dealer or from people's personal collections that you know, possibly including yourselves, and let me know about them. We can't, it's hard for us to know where all this Cherokee material that's been distributed, just like Cherokee people, Cherokee material is all over. We need people to help us find out about it so that we can get it home here to Tahlequah if appropriate. So I would ask that people keep us in mind as stewards of cultural and historical material. Keep your eyes peeled, let us know. And then really, if you have material that you think is of cultural or historical significance from your own family, or just in general, start a conversation with us whenever you are comfortable and whenever you think it's appropriate about the future life of that material. That doesn't mean you need to give it away now or give it to us now or at all. We would love to just talk to people about long-term preservation and conservation of this material. Ultimately, hopefully to be able to see it come into this collection whenever you are done with it personally. And another way to help us is, tell people we're out here. We've got a great presence here in Tahlequah. People know we're here. People are coming in. People are using the collection every day. That's awesome. I don't know that all of our at-large friends like yourselves, just the nature of not being right here in Tahlequah, I don't know that you always know that we're here to help you all too. So just share that we're here and doing this work.
So it blew my mind that I was able to go online and make an appointment and list things that I was interested in seeing or even just knowing more about, and that your team said, absolutely, we can make you an appointment on this day, and you guys pulled all kinds of documents as well as archival items from the collection and had them ready for me when I arrived.
That's what we do. Yeah,
it was amazing.
That's good. I know, it was good. I remember when you came, and yeah, so Karen had come to work to do some research, and that's a great example of pulling material from both the cultural collection, these artistic objects or art objects, as well as any archival material we can find to I think you were looking at water spider imagery and other stuff, if I remember.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. And that
Right.
I felt guilty about that too, because I'm like, oh, here I'm asked, speaking of spiders, it's like this whole web of interests.
Right.
But it was amazing the documentation that you guys had available to sort of get a broader perspective of how different cultural ideas were talked about and perceived, you know, in the 1800s or early
Right.
1900s. So also like even just I'd only seen photos of the ancient bone etching or shell etching gorgets, and everyone I know, including myself, interprets them as being on the convex side, but the engravings are on the concave side.
Yeah.
So that blew my mind, right? It's just little things that you can discover by seeing an item in person. So thank you very much, and just putting it out there to other people. I mean, how was it on the Gadoogie portal? How did I even access?
So currently, and again, we'll share this. You likely came across visitcherokenation.com, which is of course our main kind of tourism portal. So you find about the museums and all of that stuff. We're in there. You can find the research center listed under attractions on visitcherokenation.com. There is a link then to start a conversation with us. You can also just email research@visitcherokenation.com. Like Karen mentioned, it's helpful if you can provide as much detail as possible about what you're looking for. And we have a great staff. I've got 9 people on this staff, which is incredible. And we can all put our heads together to help think creatively about, okay, if Karen's working on this thing about, imagery, spider imagery, what could we pull creatively thinking instead of just being like, what has a spider on it? We try to think a little bit more broadly and help whoever's doing their research get to kind of the whole breadth of information. And one cool thing that Karen's comment made me think of, and I'm not sure we did it when you visited, but it's something, if possible, we try to do. We are really fortunate being here in Tahlequah and having incredible relationships with contemporary Cherokee artists, that if you are interested in the cultural collection side especially, but the archival as well, but if you're interested in a Cherokee art form, if you're interested in pottery, basketry, whatever it might be, you can come see things from our collection and learn from them. We'll match it up with archival items as well, and you can learn from that. We can very likely also get the kind of master artisans and artists of that medium to come talk to you. We have relationships with all of those people. That is very unique to this place. Most even museum collections and archives, you're not going to be able to pick up the phone and say, hey, Jane Austin, can you come down here and talk to someone about pottery? I can do that. I know Jane. Jane will come down here, and really, she's, as a Cherokee National Treasure especially, that's part of her responsibility holding that title. All of the treasures is to educate and share information with people, and it can happen in this space, and we can facilitate that, which is pretty special. It's pretty cool, and we've seen it happen, which is neat.
If we do find something that's on auction or from a dealer or something, who would we contact to let you guys know?
Probably me directly in that case, so I can investigate. Again, you could use that research@visitcherokenation.com email address, and it would get to me. You can also just email me. I'll put my email right now in the chat, but I can also tell you it's Ross, ROSS, dot Mulcare, MULCARE, at cnbglobal.com. That is me directly. Yeah, I don't necessarily recommend emailing me directly for everything, but this crew is welcome to.
Well, I imagine your day is mostly email anyway, so us deluging you with questions is probably not entirely fair.
Yeah, it's mostly, yes, it's mostly answering emails and trying to move them to other people. I'm learning the art of delegation to get my staff to be able to do these things as well.
Bravo
And
for
they're great. So a lot of the staff, I will say, this has been open since 2020, 2022. January of 2022 is when this space opened. I came in March of 2022. Most of the staff came in 2022. They've been here as this collection has grown, as the space has grown and kind of come into its own. Really a fantastic, knowledgeable staff. So like just like Karen was mentioning, we don't necessarily have the collection all mapped out and documented where you can search it quite yet. We're aiming towards that, and we're getting there with some of those platforms I showed you. We do know the collection, and whatever you're interested in, we can probably find something related to it. You got 9 helpers if you email us, and we can help make it happen.
I think the flip side might be, I imagine people try to drop off photos and precious family items because they think they're going to be precious there too. And then you have to kind of, I come back to the priority situation, right? You have to say, oh my gosh, now we've got these boxes of stuff we have to go through. We got to figure out where to put, is it really relevant to our mission? We want to respect everybody. I don't know. I don't know. How do you deal with that? Or can you give us some guidance? Because I think that's hard for people to
Yes,
make that
that is.
discernment themselves.
It is. I know from experience, it's very hard for people to know what has. So I'll just back up. We do have a collection scope, and we want to collect material that is accurate and authentic documentation of Cherokee culture and history, artistry, and so on. People will come in, and first of all, we don't accept walk-in donations or drop-off donations. There's a conversation that needs to happen about what you've got, how it is connected to Cherokee history and culture. How did you come across it, or your family come across it? If we know that, we have an obligation to future researchers and future staff here to understand how the collection was built and why we would take something in. So we need help of donors to answer that. We also, and this is a little harder because this is subjective in some ways, we take material that has enduring value, whether it's enduring cultural value, legal value, evidential value. Not everything, even Cherokee family material, has enduring value. People, for instance, will want to donate they're Cherokee citizens. They want to donate their vital records. They want to donate their marriage certificate. I understand the impulse. It's really not. We have to be selective because everything we take into this collection costs money to the nation and to us as citizens long term. So we have a responsibility to not just accept anything that comes in. Things like that, unless it's a significant person, and again, there's a subjective evaluation happening if someone's kind of important enough or not, and we can have those conversations with people, and that's not always pleasant, but I can do that. We try to not take stuff that would be just because it has some tangential Cherokee connection. It needs to fill a gap in the collection, enhance the collection in some way, be a better example of something than we already have. We don't need dozens and dozens of duplicates of allotment certificates, for instance. There were literally hundreds of thousands of those issued, and they are interesting and they are important pieces of evidence. You can get at the information in them through other records, so we don't necessarily need all of them. But if someone has a pristine one signed by Tams Bixby or whoever, and we don't have a pristine one or something, we would want to add it. What we really get a lot of, and that I would discourage people from wanting to donate because we don't take it, is things that come out of the ground. So rocks. It's an ongoing joke here. Once a week, someone's going to show up with a box of rocks, and they are convinced that these rocks are sacred Cherokee rocks, that they contain the spirit of the Cherokee people, because just look at it. It's in the shape of whatever, But yeah, that takes up a lot of our time declining those, and even arrowheads, these are common objects that are not generally historically significant, and especially around here, if it came out of the ground around here, it's likely not Cherokee in nature anyway, and we would prefer people to leave things in the ground and not be taking them out of the ground and bringing them here. We're not a archaeological museum. We do have some artifacts, of course, that have come out of the ground over, centuries or years, but that is not our priority, and that is what a lot of people want to bring in is cool rocks, and they always have stories attached to them that are not verifiable or otherwise not appropriate for the collection. So that's my plea to not bring in a box of rocks at least. But if you have, family photos, for instance, always want to have the discussion and look at them, see what they're documenting. If you've got family photos of great-great-grandmother at the home place and it's a Cherokee family out in front, you don't have to be famous. That's an important documentation about Cherokee life and history. That would be something to look at and discuss. If she's standing in front of the female seminary with her friends, absolutely, we want to see that and talk about that. There's 500,000 almost Cherokee citizens now. I can't take every photo from everybody currently, but those that are historical or documenting Cherokee history here, we're interested in. So it's a hard thing that requires discussion with people, basically, but really thinking about why is this significant and why would you think it needs to be saved in perpetuity is a great spot to start, because some people just think, well, you probably want it because you're Cherokee Archives. Not necessarily. We can't take everything, so help us make the decision by being ready to discuss that. That's the really long, rambly answer because it's something I have to deal with every day, so it's always on my mind too. So I appreciate you asking.
Well, maybe the safest answer is to ask before you back up the truck, right?
Please, yeah, and we've done a pretty good job about getting people to stop doing that because I will tell you, if you just show up with stuff, and you're not going to get the reception you hope for. I mean, we'll talk to people, but it's like I'm not going to sit right now and look at all your stuff. We'll make an appointment and do all of that, but people have started to learn that, and we have that on the website and all of that, so it's getting there.
And I appreciate the box of rocks story. That's quite good.
Hang out here for a week. You'll see some rocks. And their stories. They always have stories. That's the special part.
Easily verified stories, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
So what happens when you run out of space? Because you're growing now, and I've been in your vault. It is not eternal sized. So what happens then?
Yep. So 2 answers. One is that every collection eventually outgrows its space, and you end up having to figure out what to do with that. What often will happen is pursuing outside storage, offsite storage, basically. So we would build a separate facility with the same climate control and all of that, and move stuff there. We're not there to need to pursue that yet. I would expect at the rate we're growing, we've got a decade at least before we're really pushing at the limits of that space. The second answer, though, is that this collection, because of how it was built over the past 50 years, we have a lot of stuff that's out of scope. We have a lot of stuff that's not Cherokee, that is not native even. And there's reasons why that happened over 50 years. A lot of it has to do with having one person instead of 9 people run a collection. It's hard to just keep up with the decision making of how to say no to things. So I actually expect the collection will shrink slightly before it starts to grow too much more. We are working on going through the vault, going through the collection, flagging the items that are not Cherokee or otherwise out of scope. And then we will have a conversation with our preservation committee of the newly constituted Cherokee National Historical Society.
Mhm.
And we have one member of that preservation committee on the call, Patsy. But we will have a conversation with them about, here's why I think we actually need to remove this from the Cherokee National Collection and get it in the hands of either a different tribe, if it's native but not Cherokee, get it to a different museum elsewhere if it's just not appropriate for ours, or in some cases just get rid of it. Some of it's trash, and that's the nature of any collection. Over 50, 60, 70 years, you accumulate non-significant material that needs to just go. So We don't make that decision lightly. It's actually the hardest decision you can make in a collection is to get rid of things. It's actually better to just be really selective when you're taking it in. But we will get rid of some things over the coming 5-10 years after investigating them and being sure that they're not appropriate for this collection anymore. So long answer to say I'm pushing off the space decision until it needs to be in my head more.
Well, I expect there to be a curve on that, so it's not a linear time frame.
You're probably right, yes, and especially when the Heritage Center reopens in a few years, which again, I'm sure you all saw the announcement and the plans and all of that. I expect there will be an uptick in people visiting, understanding the collection, engaging with the collection, which leads to more donations and a growing collection. So I do expect an exponential growth, especially post-Heritage Center opening, rather than straight linear growth.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
And anyone else got a reason to keep Ross dragged out here? Because he's been a wonderful patient, but he is working on his day off again.
I am, but that's okay. It's a good crew, and I'm happy to share all of this, and it's exciting to see some friends that I hadn't seen in a while either.
Righto.
Righto.
Well, Joseph, I think I can, if you're done with me, I can jump off. I'm happy to stay, but if people are done, I can let you continue your meeting.
We'll let you go back about your life, and I greatly appreciate you and all your staff. I love seeing what's going on there. It's one of my favorite stops actually when I come to Telequest to see how the archives are being maintained, going through collections there. And I've actually gone through and found my own family in the books you have in the research center and things that I have never been able to find anywhere else. So it's definitely worth a trip. If no one's been through there, stop in, visit with people, and you're going to find something that you not going to find anywhere here.
Yep.
You know, the books you have just don't exist and aren't public everywhere.
Yep.
So, Watto, to you and to you.
It was great seeing you all. And I will also say, maybe we'll talk about this, Joseph. I would love, assuming it's mostly this core group continuing in the future, maybe next year, next summer or whatever, I'd love to jump back on and just share news without giving you the whole scoop about the research center. You could go back and watch the recording of this one or whatever, but then just share new cool stuff that's come in too over the past year, which is exciting. I want people to know the neat things that are coming in.
That's fantastic. I love that.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. It was great seeing you. Enjoy your afternoon. I'm 2 hours ahead of you, so my evening has now started. So I'll go start my evening.
Righto, Ross.
Bye, everybody.